Hi everyone, hope you guys are doing great. In today's video, we are going to implement a specification pattern. And if you can recall that in our last video, we have implemented repository pattern, but for filtering certain data, we do need a specification pattern as well. Using that, we can easily decouple our filtering logic from our repository class. So without further ado, let's quickly get a bit theoretical knowledge of a specification pattern first. Then we are going to implement this pattern inside our code. So let's just move to the okay. So specification pattern. What is a specification pattern? Basically, the specification pattern helps define flexible, reusable, and composable business rules or filters. What does it mean? Like in our application, we were previously filtering our data using brand ID and type ID. But once we have implemented the repository pattern, so there wasn't any easy way of filtering that data. So we have left that for a specification pattern. So this pattern help us easily decouple the filtering logic from the rest of the repository code, and we'll be quickly seeing in detail how it's going to work. Then it's ideal for querying entities with dynamic criteria. So we do not have to every time code a specific criteria. It's more sort of a dynamic which is being built using this specification pattern. How we are going to implement this? Basically, we need to have a specific interface that tells about the I specification things that we need. We'll be using a criteria, and then we will be using includes to eager load all the entities. When I talk about eager load, it do means that when the entity framework is going to pull the data against a specific item, let's say catalog item. So we tell the EF, the entity framework, to load the related entities like the brand as well as the type. So eager loading help the system to have already like the reference item or reference tables being loaded right away rather than having multiple round trips to the database. So it does improve the efficiency of our database logic. So with this being said, let's see a quick specification. We are going to then implement a concrete specification, because ISpecification interface is a generic sort of a interface. So this could be used by like a catalog filter as well as any other filters that we are going to implement in future. So this is sort of a concrete specification. Then we need to look into that why we are going to use this pattern, because implementing such type of pattern will bring a sort of a complexity. So what's the reason we are going to use this pattern? Basically, it does encapsulate a query logic. So the query logic which we are going to implement to filter out, it does encapsulate that. Then it's reusable, like the same code, rather than copying and pasting each and everything there in different controllers, we can easily reuse this code, and this can be easy to test and maintain. And even the repositories, like it's a sort of a clean and readable queries and repositories. So with this being said, let's just quickly move to our code base, and let's just quickly run and see where we were, so you get a feeler of where we were and what was the missing thing. So if you can see, using repository pattern, we have pulled all this data. But one thing, if I'm going to filter it out, you can see all the data is getting pulled. So it isn't filtering the data as per the requirement. And where we were in that code, so I can quickly walk you to the service. So you can see over here in the catalog service, if you can recall. So we have just used the I repository list, but this filtering have been removed, and this is the reason we are getting this. So let's start implementing our specification pattern. So first we are going to use our like interfaces in our application core project. We are going to add additional interface. So let's just add a new interface, add a new item, and then this item is going to be an interface. So let me just call this ISpecification interface. So with this being done, let's just call this a public interface, and this is going to accept a type T. So any type T is going to work with this. Now I'm going to add a few properties and a function. So let's just implement one expression. So this keyword, basically one thing, do bear with me that this code is going to be a bit complex and a bit abstract. So if you are not already aware of this piece of code, bear with me. I'll try to explain it as much as possible. And if you still feel that there is something being missed out or anything needs to be elaborated more, feel free to leave it within the comments. So with this expression, you can see this expression is being used to have our code as a sort of an expression tree. So it doesn't directly compiles the code, but it keeps the code in a form of an expression tree. How we are going to use it, I'll be explaining it further. Inside that, we are going to use a func. So again, let me quickly brief you what func itself is. Basically, it's a pointer to a method. So what does it do? Like, we are going to provide this a type, and we are going to get a return type. So this func do accept a type, and it do returns a boolean. So so you can think of this as a pointer to a method which is accepting a type T, and it do return bool. It could have written other things as well, but at this point of time we are expecting bool to be written, and this function do accept like sort of 16 parameters. Just to let you know, I'm trying to get into a bit detail around the code over here, so you get a feeler of how things are working. So with this being said, this is expression tree, and then we have this func, or you can think of this as a function pointer. Then let's, what does we are going to define? We are going to define a criteria. So criteria could be something like that p dot item is greater than p dot item like p dot item where price is greater than 10. So something like that. We will be looking into that as well, and we are only going to set up get criteria. Then we need to get a sort of a list. The reason for list, let me quickly tell you. Again, inside that we are going to use the expression, and inside the expression we are going to use a func. This time we are providing a T, and then we are going to use an object. So the reason we are going to use object, it could have written multiple types, it could have been a class or a property. That's the reason we are using object instead of like specifying with a specific type. And we are going to call this includes. So with this includes being here, so get is here, and what else we are going to add? We are going to add a method over here. So it's going to call includes, and again inside that we are going to add expression, and inside that we are going to use func of T, and it is going to accept an object which is sort of a include expression. So let me just use this include expression. So this is just a definition. We are going to implement this in detail when we are going to have a concrete implementation of this ISpecification. So up till here now we have our interface ready, which do have a add include method, and there are like sort of two, you can say, properties, which one is include and one is criteria. Now we are going to add our concrete implementation. So with our interface being available, let's just add a specification folder. So let me just add a specification folder. So this time again I'm adding it inside the application core, and this is going to be a specifications folder. And the reason I'm going to add this, because all the concrete implementations are going to be implemented here. So let me just add the class. I'm going to name it catalog filter specification. So let me just call this a public class, and with this specification being there, let's just implement the ISpecification of catalog item. So you can see the ISpecification was allowing any type to be accepted. So this time, as we are going to deal with catalog item, so we are using catalog item. And with this being done, let's just quickly implement this. So you can see all the properties and method are available to us. So let's just first try to have a constructor first. So let me just add a constructor first with this catalog specification, and I'm going to like have an integer, and which is going to accept a brand ID. This is a nullable because there might be brand ID being provided or it might not be provided, so it's nullable. Same goes with type ID. So it would be it would have been provided or it might not be there. Then I'm going to call a brand ID, which is going to be, so let me just have a brand ID is equals to brand ID. So this is what I'm going to, I will be keeping these as public variables or public properties. So second thing, I need to have a type ID, and then let me just call this type ID, and let's just have this a type. Let's see if it does allow us to create a public property. So it is allowing us to create a, but this time I'm not going to create a public sorry, read only one. Let me just try to create one. Let me just move it up so we can easily distinguish it. So let me just put it over here, and this time let me just generate this again as well. So we are creating two sort of properties which are public, and these are read only because we can't set those from outside. So that's one thing. Then we are going to have our criteria being implemented. So let's just have our public expression, then we have the function. And if I can quickly show you the specification over here in the specification, when we were using func, so we were having type T, no specific type was being defined. But over here, when we have tried to implement it, you can see like catalog item is already over here and a bool is being there, and then comes the criteria. Now inside the criteria, instead of setting the get, what we are trying to do, we are trying to use this criteria, and then with this criteria, let me just do one thing. Yeah, this, let me just do this way so we can, this should be more readable. So criteria, what we are going to pass it to this, and this again being provided inside, not brand ID. So what we are trying to achieve over here, if this criteria is a specific criteria, like any, we are trying to you would say materialize all these type things, and all the logic here, like concrete implementation itself is having the logic. So you can see like it's checking against the, because we do have the catalog item over here, So what we are trying to implement over here, if there is a brand ID that has value, so then we are going to provide this value. Otherwise, we can think like either it's, let me just implement or. I'll try my best to explain it, but don't worry if you don't get it on the first attempt. So let me just add the catalog brand ID is equals to brand ID. Okay. So this is one thing. So I'll be extending this, but let me first explain this so you get to know what this criteria is trying to do. So with this criteria, when we are getting this item, it is trying to filter out those catalog items that have been provided to this using this brand ID. If the brand ID doesn't have any value, so it returns true. And if doesn't hold true, let's say if it do has a value, then this is going to be false. So then this is going to be evaluated. So what happens, the catalog brand will be matched and only those items will be returned back using the criteria which do have this brand ID. So either the brand ID do exist, or if the brand ID does not exist, all the items will be returned. And if there is a brand ID do exist, so only that brand ID related item will be returned. So we are not just having brand ID, we do have type ID as well. So what we are going to add over here, we are going to add an AND condition over here, because it's not just brand, it is going to be type as well. So let me just use the type ID as well. And if it do has a value, then what we are going to do, we are going to have like catalog type ID, and which is going to be equal to type. So this way you can think of like not just this one. Let me just make it a bit more clear. So you can see the criteria is this: if there is any brand ID without value, so just return all the items. If there is a type ID without having any value, return all the items. So this means if there is no brand ID or no type ID, all the items will be returned back. But if there do exist a type ID, so it is going to return this back. Hopefully I have tried my best to explain it. So still, if there are any confusions, feel free to let me know. So let's just move further. So we have this being created. So let's just go to our list over here. Again, you can see over here, like functions do have. So when we are going to set this get, so we are going to implement a new list. So we are going to use a new list, and let's just call this expression, and this is going to be, so we are just assigning a new list. The reason is that using this add include, we are going to we are going to populate this include using this add include function, and it's just keeping a list of all the expression trees against a catalog item. So when we will be implementing this, you can see it more and in more detail. So let's just complete our add include methods. Add includes. So over here we just going to call includes, and inside that include we are going to include this expression. So whatever expression being provided over here, it's going to be included inside or added inside that list. So with this being done, let's just move to the repository, because in our repository, if you can quickly see, there is no there isn't any specific function definition using which we can use this in specification. So we need to add one more, like list of t, somewhat similar to this list, but this time this list is going to accept a ISpecification of t. So this is going to accept this specification, and let's just call this a spec. And so with this with this definition being here, let's just go to the actual implementation. If you recall, that this iRepository interface is being implemented by EF uh, let me just yeah, EF repository. So let's just go over here and you will see that it's complaining that one method is not being implemented. So let's just try to implement that and again, and you will see that this is being here. Let me just move it to the right place so we can quickly see it, because it should be right after this one. So let's start implementing this. So bear with me, this is going to be a bit complex implementation. So if you are already aware of these, so don't worry. But if you feel a bit difficult, so don't worry. I'll be explaining each and everything in detail. So let's just have a variable result with includes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this specs, and inside that we have includes. So when this includes, you, if I can quickly navigate, so you can see this include. If I go to the actual implementation, so this include is going to have a sort of expression t. So there could be multiple expressions trees. So this is going to include, and then we are going to call aggregate. So if you can quickly see that it like accumulates or applies an accumulator function on a sequence. So it will be working on all these. So it's going to aggregate those, and then we are going to use a DB context, because we are going to use this type because we haven't hard coded any type. So this DB context using set, we are going to infer the type, because the type being passed over here is going to be catalog type. So if I can quickly show you, so catalog item type would be passed over here. So this set being used, this is going to return a DB set of catalog, and then we are going to get this as a curable, and then what we are going to do, we are going to implement a lambda functions, lambda function. So with current, and let's call the include. So what we are going to do on our current, what we are going to do, we are going to call the include method, and what we are going to pass, we are going to pass this include. So let's just call this include. So let me just move this over here. So what it is doing, all the includes are being aggregated. So now post that, we are going to return our curable results. So what we need to apply, because we have the aggregate data but the criteria is not yet applied, so we are going to implement a where. Let me just use this and then use a where, and within the where we are going to pass the criteria. I'll be quickly showcasing you what criteria. So there are like two things we have with us. One was a criteria and one was an include. Include would have multiple expressions, and the criteria do have like a boolean sort of thing. And if I can quickly go to the implementation, so you can see over here, so these based on these brand IDs and type IDs, the criteria is getting specific filtered. So hopefully you are able to grasp this code. So with this being implemented, let's just try to implement this inside our code, like where we are going to consume it inside our catalog service. So let's just move to the catalog service, and let me just altogether remove this code, and let me just add a filter first. So let's just add a filter. Let's just call this filter specification, and this is going to be a new catalog filter specification. And what I'm going to provide to this, a brand ID and a type ID. So you can clearly see like this is being provided, this brand ID and type ID have been provided for this specification. And what we are going to do, we are just going to modify this filter specification, and our code is nearly completed. So let's just try and see if it's working or not. So we have our code with us, and let's just try to filter it out. So you can see currently it's showing 10 of 12 products. So you can see there are no products, and if I just try to figure this out, so I got 6 of 6 products. So hopefully you are able to get hold of this code. And one thing, rather than just moving further, let me just quickly show you that we haven't hard coded anything inside the repository. The repository itself is doing its own thing, and we are just creating a concrete specification, doing all the filtering logic inside this, and then we are just passing this filter specification to this item repository. And based on this, our code is extremely decoupled, but obviously it is adding a sort of complexity, and it would be a bit hard and difficult to get familiar with this code, but hopefully you are able to get hold of this code. And if you still think there is something else needs to be added, or like there is any difficulty you are facing, so feel free to leave it within the comments. I'm hopeful that you are able to grasp what specification pattern is and how it's implemented along with repository pattern. And if you like this video, so feel free to subscribe. And if you have any question or comments, feel free to post those. And for upcoming videos, make sure you subscribe this channel. So thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.